You know, Gallup recently did a survey and they asked children from grade 5 all the way through grade 12 one question: how strongly do you believe you're going to find an amazing job once you graduate? And what was interesting were the results. 70% of little girls in grade 5 said, I believe I'm going to have an amazing job when I graduate. But if you follow them through grade 12, it went from 70% to 46%. Now, boys didn't fare much better, but what do you believe happened between grade 5 and grade 12? Anyone? Reality is one that we hear quite a bit. Why do you gotta be so negative? But honestly, here's what happens. Think about this. They did another survey where Gallup asked American parents, they said, if your child brings home 3 A's, a C, and an F, where do you spend the majority of your time over the next 9 weeks? 70+% of parents said they spend most of their time focusing on the F, the failure. Now imagine that. You're spending the majority of your time over 9 weeks telling your child where they're weak. Isn't that interesting? Now, I'm not saying you should ignore the weakness, but what I am saying, we should manage the weakness. Now imagine this even in your own life, because we constantly want to, we call it reality, want to constantly find out how we can strengthen our weaknesses, but you have a bunch of strong weaknesses. Let's focus on what we're great at. If I even look at my own report cards, even in elementary school, here's an example of one I'll show you. Even in elementary school, teachers were writing on my report card, Brian talks too much. Brian's still trying to stay quiet in class. Now, that was a strength. I've earned millions of dollars over the years doing what they told me I shouldn't do. Isn't that really an interesting way of looking at it? Now, I'm preaching this, but yet at the same time, I'm guilty of this. My own little girl, when she was in first grade, Alexis is an amazing, she's very bossy at the time, okay? She gets that from her mother. And yet in first grade, I went to her teacher and I said, Alexis is very bossy. And she's a great little girl, but I just want you to know, just so you can have those expectations. And you know what our teacher, Mrs. Kirk, said to me? She said, and I'll never forget this, she said, Mr. Parlsey, Alexis is not bossy. She's a leader. And what we need to do is show her how to harness that leadership capacity so people will follow her. The power to influence other people, to get voluntary compliance. And here we are, 600 plus sales professionals in this room. How do you get your customers to want to follow you? That's the key. One of the main topics I speak around is the psychology of an elite salesperson. So how did I get this information? I actually sat down and interviewed 11 top producing sales professionals. Now these are women and gentlemen that all earn over 7 figures a year in dollars, straight commission, from financial services to real estate. And I wanted to identify and find out what are the traits that they have, and here's what they are. And I thought they were really intriguing. We're gonna deep dive into each one of these for you guys. But as an overview, I want you to understand, number one, they're emotionally detached to every single deal. Now, notice I didn't say they're not emotional, but they're emotionally detached. And it's funny because when you don't act like you have to have it and you're not desperate, it's amazing how people are more attracted to that. They're also very assumptive. They understand that you're gonna buy from them. But they also understand that sometimes it could be 4 to 6 exposures before you actually do buy. They're not in a rush. They're not trying to push you into it, but they're prepared. And they ask questions. And questions are actually pretty easy. It's questions that you ask the person, but it forces them to respond in terms of you. Now, what I mean specifically is just asking questions that are going to engage them in such a way that they're going to ask additional questions. You know, I want to share something with you that when you walk out of here, you're going to use. I don't care if you're a manager, sales professional, this is something you're going to take with you forever, and that's how to communicate effectively. In fact, I learned it from when my daughter was 4 years old. I'll never forget, we were pulling into a pharmacy to pick up a prescription. My wife was driving, and my daughter says out of the back seat, out of nowhere, Mom, where's the effing pharmacy at? My wife pulls her. It's like, I can't believe, what did you just say? And she said, you heard me. I said, where's the effing pharmacy at? And my wife was mad. She's staring at me. I'm like, I don't know, it wasn't me. But what she said next is something you never want to hear from your mother. She said, choose your next words wisely. Now my daughter's upset, 4 years old, she's in the back, and she said, why are you upset, Alexis? And she said, Mom, look at that word, pharmacy. Where's the F in pharmacy? and we get this awe. And you know the lesson that I learned in business that you're going to walk out of here with today? It doesn't matter what you say. What matters is what someone hears. And it doesn't matter what you write in that email. What matters is what they read in that email. And that's why it's imperative that you stop sending emails to deliver anything that could potentially be bad news. Pick up the phone. I see it all the time. People, not only do they write the bad email, they carbon copy 15 people, and you're sitting 2 feet away. Get up and talk. You know, be able to communicate. No, but we need to document. Fine, document. But have a conversation, then afterwards, go back and then say, hey, per our conversation, I just want to make sure you understand the things that I'm going to do. It's amazing. And by the way, if someone ever sends you something in this office going forward, you can say, did you mean that, or was that a effing pharmacy? One of the most exciting things I get to do as a father is to have daddy-daughter dates. And if you have a daughter, you understand what I'm saying. And October of last year, my daughter said, Dad, I want to go to Disney World. And I said, absolutely. So she and I flew down there, and I know it was October because it was Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and the people at Delta Airlines were raising funds for breast cancer. So on the flight down, she was making jewelry. She makes these little rubber bracelet things, and she was making that, and the flight attendant came by to collect money, and I put $20 in there. My daughter didn't even actually miss a beat. She just kept doing her thing, but the lady stopped and said, excuse me, she said, do you make jewelry? And she said, I make these little bracelets and I sell them for $1. And she's like, well, could I have one? She said, sure, pick. And she said, no, I want you to make me one, like red and white, like the colors of Delta. And she said, I can do that. She measured her wrist, and about 5 minutes later, the lady came back and she said, here's your $1. My daughter, now my daughter's 10 years old, she looks up and says, no, that'll actually be $5. And the lady goes, oh, I'm sorry, I thought you said they were $1. She said, that's custom. And the lady said, oh, you're so cute, what is your name? And she said, here's my card. And she handed her her business card. See, I don't know where she gets that from, right? So, she's a little entrepreneur, and I thought, how amazing. She didn't apologize, she didn't back down, she knew her price, she stuck with it. But here's why I'm sharing this with you. We talk about the power to influence other people, and one of the most powerful ways is unintentionally. Because on the trip back, one of the flight attendants, one seat got upgraded, one didn't, just to kind of give you some context here. I'm sitting in row 20-something. The flight attendant comes back halfway through the flight, says, is your daughter sitting in row 3C? And I said, yes. So, well, it depends. You know, she's a little cheeky. And she said, well, I just want you to know your daughter's the only person in first class that gave money to breast cancer on this flight, and she put $5. So I share that with you for a couple of reasons. She put the $5 back that she made on the trip down, right? But I share with it for two real reasons. Number one, because I'm a great father. But number two, and probably the most important part, is unintentionally, I was influencing my daughter when I gave. Isn't that interesting? I didn't even notice. She certainly, I didn't think, noticed. But unintentionally, my actions, and think about this in your job, sometimes your inactions, are influencing other people, building your reputation, your brand, your company's brand, being able to close more deals because you're focusing on serving others. Does that make sense? You know, I have a friend of mine, his name is Andrew, and he's about this tall. One of the top 3 most unattractive men you've ever met your entire life. Now I know, in the South we say, bless his heart. But here's the most amazing thing. Andy actually dates some of the most beautiful women I've ever seen. In fact, I asked my wife, I said, how does he do that? And she said, he's sexy. I said, sexy? He's a troll. But she said, no, he's just really confident. So I said, Andy, can I go with you one night? I just want to kind of see how you interact. I'm doing this talk for confidence in sales professionals. And he said, absolutely. So I went with him, and he knows. He's like, listen, I know I'm not attractive, but I got game. And he walks in, and I say, he said, pick someone. I go, how about her? Walks right up to her and starts with, hi, I'm Andrew, what's your name? And it was confident. It was 10 times braver than anything I've ever seen before. He was an amazing artist. And it wasn't cheesy like, are you from Tennessee? Because you're the only 10 I see. It wasn't hokey, it was confidence. Because I know when I was single, I was like a hyena looking for the injured animal, the weak one. And that seems to be what happens. And obviously, ladies, no woman wants a man that's desperate or desperate looking. But yet, if you look about it in terms of being a leader or in terms of being a great sales professional, Many times we come across as weak when we need to just have confidence, to believe in yourself, to push yourself, to go 2 more inches, to go farther than anyone else. Because you know what? Anyone can, but very few people ever will. And one of the hardest concepts you're ever going to grasp in your career, the hardest concept is telling the truth to yourself. You lie to yourself. You justify, you rationalize on a daily basis. And it's not always the other person. You have to look in the mirror and take responsibility, and that's what makes a professional stay top of his game.